Friends, I am so excited for who you get to meet today. I just have this feeling that this is going to be really fun. I'm sitting here with my new friend, Kimberly Stewart. Kim, welcome to Girls Night.
Thank you for having me. There's nothing better than a girls' night. I can't even think of a better option. So I'm excited to be here.
There's nothing better than a girls' night. Absolutely. Can you tell us who you are, what you do, and a fun fact about yourself?
I can. I live in Iowa, probably a long way from where you are, because typically that's the truth. I am.
I'm in Tennessee, so yeah, we're pretty far.
Okay, yeah, we're really long way.
Yeah.
I am a writer and a podcaster. I do some writing coaching with my friend Bob Goff, who is also a writer and a podcaster, and we love helping writers get their words out into the world. I have 3 kids. They're all mostly older than probably a lot of the kids of your folks listening. My eldest is 21 and she's studying in Spain right now, which is very fun. And then I have a senior in high school son and then my freshman daughter. And we live with my husband, Mark, who is fantastic and just one of the best decisions I've ever made. And our mini schnauzer, who is just has an identity crisis every time I leave the room.
Okay. I love this. I have so many things to ask/say, but let me get your fun fact first.
Oh yeah, fun fact. Well, I asked Mark last night. I said, I'm chatting with a new friend tomorrow and she wants to know a fun fact. Am I fun? Do I have facts? He assured me that I do have facts. I don't know how fun he feels I am. He said, what about your record? And I want to talk to you about that, Stephanie. In junior high, I went to a small school and we had a track team that was barely limping along, if you know what I'm saying. Like we just didn't have very many people to fill the slots. And so every track meet, the track coach would, say, Kim, you're up for whatever, like fill in the blank. And I want to assure your listeners that I am a slow runner and not super athletic compared to my family. My dad played football in college. My brother played football in college. My sister played soccer in college, and then me. So I would always be like corralled into these very strange track experiences. And one time, Coach, we'll call her Coach Emily, not her name, asked me to throw shot put. Now, we haven't met in person yet. So you don't know that I'm short. And I don't think I really have the profile of a typical shot putter, but I sure did.
Okay.
I threw that shot and had a school record I was in my 20s and walking through that school years later, and my name was still on the wall. That's weird. I don't know if it's a fun fact. It's a little of an alarming fact, but there it is.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I told a story a couple days ago about scuba diving and the fact that I'm scuba certified and I go scuba diving on occasion. And I was like, I need everyone to know that this is a very unlikely thing. Like, right. I'm kind of afraid of fish. I don't love, I just don't you can do you, I'll do me, don't touch me. Don't touch me. It was like, this is not on brand for me. This is very off brand for me.
Well, good for you.
When I tell you this, so I love that. I love knowing that. We'll take your word for it, that you're not like a natural athlete, and we'll cheer you on even more for it.
But shot put's a weird sport. I don't mean to offend all the shot putters out there, but you hold a ball and shove it out from your shoulder. Is it a sport? It feels like something out of the medieval games that people play with pork chops in one hand. You know what I'm saying? It's like a kind of sport. So I can't at all pretend like that was an athletically prowess moment. But scuba diving is cool. People scuba dive in like the Maldives and Bali. No one throws shot.
The only reason
I
did it, someone has to. Okay, listen, we could get so far off. Okay, I'm wrangling us back. This is fun. I knew this was going to be fun. Okay, one more thing before I wrangle us back. Your daughter is studying in Spain. Where is she?
She's in Seville. In fact, we just got back from visiting her just a few days ago. So I'm rather jet lagged right now, which explains the shot put story.
Okay. this is, again, a whole tangent we can go on another day, but I studied abroad in Seville in college.
You did not.
Yes, I did. My whole life changed there. I met Jesus there.
Oh my gosh.
I am a totally different person because I studied abroad in Seville. And I went with the girls who are listening. I don't know when this is going to come out exactly. I will have just announced this, like not that long before this comes out. But one of my best friends and I were in Seville together. And through a long series of events, our two families have decided that we are moving to Spain in July. So I am moving to Spain with my husband and my toddlers and my best friend that I studied abroad with and her husband and her sons.
My gosh.
Maybe don't
we
let
have
kids
a
study abroad
lot
in Spain.
to talk about. Oh my gosh. And are you going back to Sevilla or where are you going?
We're not going to Sevilla for like 1,000 complicated reasons. It was really touch and go. My heart lives there. So we're like,
So beautiful.
maybe? We are going to be just close to Sevilla. We're going to be in Granada.
Oh, what a beautiful place. You can have a picnic by the Alhambra. I can't believe this is so exciting. We're going to have an entire conversation off mic about what's happening here. I'm so excited for you.
We will. Okay, well, I love that. And yes, I can imagine you're jet lagged. So I'll try to be, we'll be gentle.
No, I'm good.
We'll be gentle. Tell us. So you have a book that I was just looking at it and like giggling and smiling because I love it. I love the cover so much. It's called Star for Jesus and Other Jobs I Quit, Recovering the Grace That Sets Us Free. Can you tell us about the book and kind of like the backstory of it?
Yeah. So this is actually my 9th book, but all the others have been novels. So I've written in the fiction space for a long time, rom-com, kind of Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movie-ish. And so that's kind of been where I've hung out for a really long time. And that was a great place for me. I really enjoyed it. I love storytelling. I love to make people laugh and probably cry a couple times and think through story. And so this book does all of that, only the stories are mine. The idea of the book about kind of unwrapping or taking a fresh look at grace really has just come from my own wrestling with that loaded big word for many years. I've done a good job, I think, of nodding in agreement with God for many years and saying, yes, absolutely, grace is amazing. And then I'm furiously paddling under the water to earn something. Or really, I've been cheapening grace by saying, God, you did a great job and now let me help you, right? By earning your favor or by showing you that I am deserving of this gift. And that sounds, I know, completely nonsensical, but grace is nonsensical. We don't live in that space. Everywhere else in our life, there's a balance sheet, right? So you put in and then you get paid in relationships, in your work, in your effort. And so the idea of this extraordinary, beautiful, complete gift that's mine without earning it, it doesn't jive with any other place in my life. And so I think as a firstborn female and a list maker and a list checker-offer, grace has just, okay, I'm not alone here.
Yeah. No, firstborn. Yeah, I'm here.
Exactly. I think we just don't, it just is, for me, has been kind of something that I've held on to every now and then I feel like it slips through my fingers. And so usually when I can't totally wrap my head or heart around something, I just write about it. So that's kind of where this came from. That's kind of the big idea. And then the construct of the book is a lot of personal story with the mind that I think people let you into the room when they have laughed with you, or they've cried with you, or if they've felt something. And so story is just such a superpower. It's not a how-to, it's not a manual. I think we have books in that space. I just didn't want to go there because when I think about the things that have changed me, typically there's a story around it. I don't remember a lot of times when I read a bullet point list and thought, oh, that's the ticket. It's just not how my brain works. It's not how my body or even my understanding, my spirit works. It doesn't work like that. So I think story is a superpower, and that's been such a joy to write these stories because I lived them. And then to share them is just so stinking fun.
So cool.
And scary. Both.
And scary. And scary. Whew, man. Give me a little more context about what it's looked like to be a star for Jesus. Like, what did that look like? Did you grow up in the church, in the faith space? Like, is that sort of a mantle you've
totally
worn for a while?
Yeah. So the idea of Star for Jesus, it's very funny because I always really feel the need to say, there's a phrase after that because it's Star for Jesus and other jobs I quit. To be clear, just as I am not a natural shot putter, please do not look at this as like how to be a star for Jesus. In fact, that's the whole point, right? That we're not on a quest for that. When I was growing up, I did grow up in a faith community. My parents are phenomenal people. They absolutely live in the river of grace. So they have modeled that for me. They have loved me beautifully. But, I'm sure you're finding with your own child, we say things and do things, and sometimes our kids believe us, and sometimes they have to just learn that on their own. And so somewhere in the mix at church, or I went to a Christian school for a while when I was little, or through junior high, somewhere along the line, I started deciding that the way to keep my nose clean and to do things, right? Read the Bible in a certain way at a certain time and check off all the boxes of all the kind of disciplines of the faith, that had an elevated importance for me. I have full confidence that was not being preached to me. I was just picking it up. I was just deciding to ignore the parts about free gifts. When I was in elementary school, there was a program at our church that was kind of, it was a lame Girl Scouts. It's really what I would call it. Jesus Girl Scouts. Which means we had really ugly outfits, and we didn't get to do any fun things that like Girl Scouts would do. So there were no cookies. Okay. There were no cute braids. We had to wear polyester dresses. But similar to the Girl Scouts, we would earn badges and earn our way. And so one of the things we had to do was to read through the Bible, check mark by check mark, chapter by chapter. And I dutifully did it because I have never met a checkbox that I don't like. I like them all. I write check boxes. I write little box to checks after I've done something at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you do that too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Totally. It doesn't count if I've not checked it off. Yeah. So same thing with the Bible or service or prayer. So that program, at the culmination of the program, you could become a star. Okay? Which means you would get a satin cape and a candlelit ceremony. Yep, candelabras, and an actual crown because you were a star for Jesus. So the name of the book comes from that. I sure have a photo that I can send to you. It kind of looks like I'm joining a cult. And I think it was all in absolutely the best intentions, okay? If you were my Girl Scout Jesus leader and are listening to this podcast, I want to assure you I love you and I thank you for all of your years of service and volunteering. I am the one that mixed it up, right? I just decided that this thick binder full of all the things I had to do to get my cape somehow got into the cocktail of, and don't forget to keep striving for that when this story is over. What you do with Jesus is to tap dance for him, right? And to perform and to make sure that he is happy with you instead of knowing to my bones, I am beloved by him, period. There is no cleaning up before I go hang out with him. There is no, now you're ready. You're ready. There is no addition or subtraction, right? There's no math with grace. It's exactly complete and whole, just as it is, and just as it always has been. I don't think it's a coincidence or an accident that Jesus said on the cross, it's finished. I mean, people have written books about that sentence. To me, that means, okay, kid, you can knock it off now. The ledger is complete. This is stamped paid in full. It's not your job. It's not your job anymore.
I keep thinking back to what you said about like, this doesn't match anything else in our lives. And it really doesn't.
Mhm.
And I think that there's even something like I'm thinking about marriage and marriage, like when you've chosen a person and like spent your life with them, there's an element of like show up how you are, except for
Yeah.
it's not totally because how you show up impacts the other person. And
Yep.
like there's like no, we shouldn't be, keeping tally of like, well, I emptied the dishwasher this many times and you did it this
Right.
many times. But there's an element to the fact that like you're doing a group project as a partnership.
Mm.
So it's like your money, your home, your dishes, your
Mm.
kids, your all of that. It's a group project. And so there is an element of like, if I don't pull my weight, you have to. And I don't want to do
Mm.
that to you.
Yeah.
So there even is kind of this transactional element with
Right.
marriage and friendship and stuff. And so the fact that like we just get to be loved and like there's nothing we need to do for it is
Right.
so it's like we just don't have a whole lot
It's
of
astonishing.
context for it.
It's extraordinary. You're so right. And that idea of a transactional relationship, I think, is where I got kind of messed up, tripped up. Even in a marriage or in a friendship, which are incomplete versions of this, I respond to Mark doing the dishes and doing all of, making sure I'm a part of the crew because I love him. Right. So I think the motivation underneath why we do what we do is important, even when talking about grace. Right. So if I'm checking the box off and saying, well, I've had my 25 minutes of quiet time and I've talked with the Lord and that was all I needed today. I'm doing great. That feels empty to me. Right. I don't want people in my life to feel like they're checking a box when they spend time with me. What if underneath the motivation is, I love you and I am so beloved by you. That's why I want to be here in this chair right now. There are fits and starts with this, right? I've walked with Jesus for a really long time. I've been married 25 years. And, some days are easier than others for unloading the dishwasher. Some days I do a better job of saying so clearly to Mark, eye to eye, I adore you. I'm here because I adore you. I will always. I'm here for this, right? I would say there's not a linear progression of this, but boy, when you start letting the truth of this seep into you and propel you through your day, when you begin your day thinking, I am so beloved, how can I possibly go through this day with a lighter heart, knowing that, right? I don't have to check in at 5 and prove my worth, right? I begin and end with this extraordinary, stubborn, tenacious love of God all over me. That changes things for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about kind of the progression of this. So like, well, first of all, I need like, you earned your cape, right? And your
I totally.
Yeah.
Is that the firstborn female in you asking that question?
Yeah. Like, well, I was going to say,
did
did you earn it? And then what happened? Like, kind of what did the progression look like? And then I was like, no, of course you did. You're firstborn. Like, you love the check boxes. There's no way you left that thing undone.
Totally did it.
Yeah.
Crushed that blue binder. I did earn the cape. And a lot of other weird trinkets. Like there was a store and you could buy things for doing good things. So I had like quite a few fuzzy photo white Jesus paperweights. You want some? So anyway, after that, I would say it was probably college for me when I came face to face with all sorts of things that had been maybe hypothetical to that point. So for example, I know you remember this probably from your time in Seville. College is this beautiful space where you learn how to be who you are, and they're all sorts of just firecrackers. There's also a new kind of loneliness, a new kind of reckoning when you're deciding who you want to be now that you don't know any of these people and you can decide. I felt out of control in that situation. In my first year of college, I developed a bit of it was in just disordered eating. I hesitate to say eating disorder. I know that there's a whole continuum around this, but it was a problem. And I sunk my feet into the problem because it felt like something that I could make tidy, right? There was something to count, something to monitor. Everything else felt very out of control. And this I could control, the eating I control, or this starving, really. I was starving myself. So that was a time, and again, far away from significant, quite a bit away from home. I was about 6 hours by car. And so on the one hand, I was so hungry for time with God because something in my head and heart knew that was a satisfying place, right? That was where I could get something that was true. And on the other hand, I could hardly believe it. I could hardly believe that that would be enough, that he was enough. It just didn't seem like that could possibly be a true story. Even though I'd seen it, lived out in front of me, I hadn't held fast to that on my own. And so I remember being in a chair reading a book. I had not eaten in a very long time. And I was reading a book by a guy named Brennan Manning. He wrote a book called The Ragamuffin Gospel, and it's about grace. And there's this scene in that book. I haven't thought of this in years. There's a scene in this book where this woman has gone through, I might be butchering this, it's been a while, but she has gone through a horrific accident, and her face didn't look like her face anymore. And she was feeling so unprepared for whatever was coming. And her husband came into the room and he leaned over, and this is after surgeries and kind of just the very beginning of the healing. And she was really unrecognizable to the outside world, but he leaned over and he kissed her. And I remember him saying in that book, I kiss who you are. I'll find a new way to kiss you because I love you, period. The misshapen, the messed up, how this doesn't look like it used to anymore. You are who I love. And Manning wrote so beautifully about how that is a metaphor for grace. And I remember sitting in that chair and just weeping because I thought, oh my gosh, she didn't clean anything up. She didn't fix her disordered thinking or behavior. She didn't decide, okay, now I've got all my best clothes on and I'm spit shine. Now I will pray, right? It's the opposite of that. So I'm not sure if that's the case for everybody. I would guess that most people, when they finally get a reckoning that strips them of old and maybe harmful ideas, typically those things happen after suffering or questioning or confusion, or when life does not cooperate with you, right? Typically plan Bs are when I've had to get rid of all of my preconceived notions and decide, okay, well, what of this is true, right? People told me it was true, but how do I know for me? And that stage was probably the time that I decided, okay, I'm going to road test this stuff for myself.
Love that. I love that.
I've never told that story before. You're a magician.
Oh. It's the magic of girls' night. Anything can happen at girls' night. I love that so much. I remember, you know what? I think I probably only read half of it, but I think I still have a copy of Ragamuffin Gospel. I think it's one of the first books that I read.
It's funny too. Isn't that funny with books? Like maybe if you read that now, it'd mean something totally different. Maybe if I read that book now, I'd think, oh yeah, it's a beautiful book, but I know that stuff. Or maybe it just wouldn't hit me. That's such a cool thing as a writer. I'm sure you feel this way too, that words have life and they have some shelf life and they have some mileage. And so for me, that book at that time was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I absolutely have books like that where I'm like, it got me in the right way in the exact right time. And it's so cool because, as writers, like I just finished a book and you just finished a book. Like we've just been in this process and now we're both in this process of like sending them out into the world. It's like Brennan Manning could not have imagined you sitting in that chair as he was writing that book. And that's just a really cool, like it just takes on a life of its own.
It totally does. It's an honor.
So what do we do if we are in this place right now of being like, I don't know how to, like, I get this with my head. I don't know how to like sink it lower than that. How do we make this real for ourselves?
That's a good question. How does the rubber hit the proverbial road? Yeah. A few things come to mind. I don't think that I'm not going to give you a checklist. Because all the strivers listening would be like, boom, did it.
Done.
My first reaction, and maybe this is just because I've been in this space for a while in my head and my heart of remembering. Remembrance is a big deal in the Bible. God really is keen on helping us remember what he has done. And if the more you read in the Psalms and a lot in the Old Testament, even Jesus, who's constantly quoting dead prophets, there's this undercurrent of remembrance. And I'm starting to think in my elder years that the reason for that is not just to be able to pass a Bible quiz, like, did Isaiah say this or not? I think the reason for that admonition is because we forget everything, right? We forget good stuff. I really hold on to bad stuff better than I do good stuff. I don't know if I'm the only one here. So saying to myself, look behind you, Kim. Let's look at the wake of God's faithfulness in your life before you even had a name for it or for him. Right? Let's look for grace. That's a big part of what I hope this book does and this conversation does. We all have absolutely a smattering and sometimes a tidal wave of grace in our lives, and it's there. I'm just not so very good at excavating it sometimes, right? There's something beautiful that happens when we pivot and look behind us and we start to look for evidence of where God has extended grace to us, where people have extended grace to us. So that would be the first thing. I think there's some beautiful alchemy that happens when we start to say, can you just show me where you've been, right? Can you help me revisit some of these spaces? And maybe they're painful spaces where at first glance, you think, I don't see it. I bet you anything, if we slow down and look really closely, and maybe it's not even that close, right? Once you start looking for it, it's like those old magazines that are elderly for you, pretty much in the 1800s. We got this magazine called Highlights, and every time there was always one page that it was all the same color of ink, and you had to find hidden things, right? Find the monkey in the tree and find the car standing on top of, the house. Once you saw the car, you can't not see it. You cannot look at that drawing and think, no, I don't see a car. I think once you have eyes to see this, like you're really intent on using that muscle or that view, that lens, all of a sudden you see it all over the place. So that would be the first thing, to really start thinking about just looking behind you. Because if we really believe that God never changes, then if he was faithful before and full of grace before, he is that now too. So that would be the first. Also, I really think it's important to practice this stuff in real life. This is horrible, by the way. Sorry. When I started writing this book, I thought, this is a safe topic, right? Let's talk about love, let's talk about grace, maybe talk about a little forgiveness, maybe a little mercy. That sounded really great until I had to start doing this with what I will call the doinks in my life. Do you use this word in Tennessee? Doink?
No.
I want you to say it.
What does it mean?
Say the word. Say it right now. Doink.
Doink.
Yeah.
I like it.
Put some heft to it. Come on. More D in it. Doink.
Well, I need to know what it means before I'm going to shout it.
You're not cussing accidentally.
It's girls' night. Anything
Doink.
goes.
Oh, yeah, totally. Okay, good. I'm in a safe place. Doink, I would say maybe it's an Iowa thing. It's the person that is so hard, right? The person that you would never willingly choose to hang around with more than is needed. Sometimes these people are in our families. Sometimes they're in our communities or the carpool lane or they're at our work, but they are everywhere. And I started seeing a difference between grace in my understanding of like drive-by grace. Okay, so put an extra donation into a cup or help someone who says thank you a lot, right? Be nice to the Target checkout lady, right? She's had a hard year. Let's just be nice to her. I started noticing that those were like entry-level grace pieces. The doinks were the hard people. The doinks were people I couldn't just nod and move on. That's where we got into that's where I got into trouble. And so road testing that, trying that out of I am going to extend grace to this person past the point of when I really want to. And I'm going to extend grace and assume I'm getting nothing out of it. Oh, it's just horrendous. The thought of it, right? It's so much harder. I like to be thanked for what I've done. I do.
Yeah, same.
I like people to say thank you to me. Doinks never say thank you. And that's exactly the point. That's grace. It's not deserved. It's not earned. It's unearned. It's unmerited. If I am doing that in my real life, it is a constant reminder of how grace is living and breathing, and it is for me. That's the kind of grace that God gives me. So I can't pick and choose. I can't being nice to the nice people that's just like easy algebra, right? Calculus is doinkville. So I would say looking back, remembering where you've seen this grace, looking out for ways that you can extend grace, right? That's like next level of not just wondering if it's for you. When you try it out on people in your life, you will see it. You will see it blooming and growing. And even if you don't get a thank you note, it changes you. It changes the way that you move through the world. And then just very practically speaking, I am a big nerd and I love index cards. And I just absolutely am not ashamed to have cards all over my house with Bible verses that tell me what's true. I'm amazed at how I forget it. So writing out longhand, the verse in John that talks about that God has grace upon grace, right? There's no scarcity here. It's grace upon grace, upon grace, upon grace. In a day or a culture that really we think there's not going to be enough, if I write that out with my own hand, I remember, there's enough. There's enough. So I take my pen to paper. That helps me as well.
Really like that.
And sorry, one more thing. A lot of your listeners have babes in arms. I know you do. If you can treat yourself with the kind of grace that you extend to your child, that's going to help this. That's going to help this. You would never
That was the thing that
yeah, go.
That was the thing that I thought of when we were talking about how this is like so unnatural in our lives. It just doesn't work this way in any relationship. I was thinking, except for with kids, with like babies. Like my girls did absolutely nothing. They could do nothing for so long. And now they do all the wrong things because they're 3. So it's like, but still, I tell them all the time, like nothing you do can make me love you less, and nothing you can do will make me love you more. Like
that's right.
It's just not how it goes. But I've never gotten to live that. I guess I've never gotten to live that out with someone as consistently, and someone who could do nothing to earn it or pay me back as I have with kids.
And that is you with Jesus. You can't pay him back. I can't pay him back. So that makes more sense to me when I think of it through the lens of being a mom. That I would never say to my child, if she crawled up onto my lap, which would be very strange now that my children are 21, 18, and 15, but I'm here for it, whatever. I'm definitely the shortest among us. But if they, when they were little, had crawled up on my lap and had said, I want to talk to you, Mom. Like sometimes I approach God in prayer and think I need to have everything ready to rock. And I fall asleep. I often pray before I'm asleep in bed. and I fall asleep all the time. I would never have said to little Ani or Mitch or Thea, now I want you to make eye contact with me, and I think your teeth should be brushed. And I want you to wear a very lovely coordinated outfit in neutral tones. And I want you to remember to say all the right words at the right time in a cadence that sounds like this. I would never. If that kiddo had fallen asleep mid-sentence on my lap, I would have loved it because it meant that she wanted to be with me.
So happy. That's the best.
Totally, because that says she or he is feeling so safe, right? She can be completely relaxed. So how about we extend that kind of kindness to ourselves when we think about how we relate to God? He's not looking for the button-up, teeth-washed version. He wants you to crawl on his lap and say, this is how I'm doing. It's not great. And then conk out. He's good with that. We have decided he's not, but that's absolutely not true. And it impoverishes our time with him.
I love this. Okay, Kim, I have a hard question, and I totally didn't brace you for this. So
we're good. Remember, I have teenagers and young adults. We have lots of hard questions all day long, usually starting at midnight. So this is good.
Lovely. I have one of the things that has always been at the very center of my heart for Girls' Night is that this is a safe space for everybody. And that's people who live in all kinds of ways and look differently and act differently and I was going to say smell differently. And then I was like, that's a weird thing to say.
Great. But, I love this.
For the fact, I didn't really spend any time in church until I was in college. And so it's really important to me that this is a place just that is absolutely safe for everybody. Girls' Night is for everybody. And I know that it seems, this is honestly always been true, but it feels like it's more true now than it ever has been. Church isn't a safe place for everybody. And, this, you get to just show up how you are and you're safe to crawl in and conk out. And that's what prayer should be. I think that the expectation would follow that if that's who God is, well, then that's who God's people should be. And that's what God's building should be like. And that's what Sunday morning should feel like. And anyone who's been a human for half a second knows that that's not the case. You're not welcome if you love people, if you love certain people, or if you look a certain way, or if you act a certain way, or if you've done certain things. There's not grace for you. And the reason this is a hard question is because I'm totally not trying to ask you this question on behalf of all believers everywhere. What do you have to say for this? But I would love to hear your thoughts for people who are like, yeah, that sounds nice, but that has not been my experience.
The first thing I would say is that I am so sorry. I know I don't hold the weight of Christendom, but I am sorry in my own community, in our own state, in our lives. And actually, I travel a lot and I see this and hear this a lot. And it grieves me because if you are listening and that has been your experience, that the people of God or the place where you should feel like your shoulders can finally relax has been the opposite for you, and you do not feel welcome and you do not feel safe or you do not feel heard or seen, I am so sorry. And that is so not like Jesus, right? I mean, I can't imagine how that grieves the heart of God because it grieves my heart, and my heart's fairly dirty on the average day. So I'm just so grieved that has been your experience. And I'm grieved further that you are not alone in that experience. So that would be the first thing. And then I would say, I think that it's astonishing to me sometimes that Jesus left the church with us, that he left that work of good news with us, because we are so not reliable. And I have asked him probably more in the last 4 years than any other time, what were you thinking? You left it with us The work is with us. We are hurting each other, backbiting each other, elevating things that don't need to be elevated, not paying attention to things that should be paid attention to. There is ample evidence that maybe this was a dicey decision, Lord. And right? Do we want to rethink this? But then when I go back to ancient writings and scripture, and also the early church, I like to read a lot of dead old people. So I'm talking about people in, 300 AD. I'm into that. 1400 AD, 1600. I find that we are not the first to ask these questions. We are not the first to feel like, what is going on? This is not what I signed up for. Where is Jesus in this, right? Why is power becoming more important than purpose? Why is charisma becoming more important than character? All of these things that we're asking and wrestling with, we aren't the first. And it's easy to feel like we are, right? In part because we're very loud right now. Right? There's just so much. And we have access to every single crisis, every single scandal with one thumb imprint in our phones. And so while it feels overwhelming, I guess there's some strange comfort in knowing we're not the first to ask these questions, and we're not the first era in church history and the history of faith in Jesus where we've had to do some reckoning, and we've had to weed, and we've had to return again to our first love, which is not power, which is not size of a congregation, or everyone agreeing, or everyone voting in the same way, or everyone deciding you are okay because this is how we all live. We're not the first. And so there's some comfort in that. And in my own heart, I often have to kind of reel that baby back in and say, people are always going to disappoint me. Jesus will not disappoint me. I cannot confuse the two, right? We have a mantle to carry, no question about it. I'm not giving any pass to anybody. I have an entire chapter, heartbreaking chapter in this book called What It's Not, right? Sometimes the word grace has been weaponized. Please forget what has been done to you. Forgive what has been done to you. Extend some grace. My blood pressure just spiked saying that sentence because that is a bastardization of the word grace. Can I say bastardization? Because I surely did.
You can say anything.
That is
girls' night.
Okay, good. You better stop saying that to me because everything's going to come out. That's a warping of the meaning of grace. I have suspicions that God gets particularly the benign word would be touchy with people misusing that word. I think there's probably a lot more than just being irritated, because this is the amazing stuff, amazing grace that sets people free. And so if grace has been used, mercy, forgiveness, love, if those words have been used to entangle or chain or shackle you or keep you quiet or in a dark place, that is a lie. That's a lie. That version of those beautiful, pure words is not true. Period. Full stop. Grace does not turn the lights down in a room. It flicks every single one of them on. It does not say, now just stay here and stay caught, all because you want to extend quote unquote grace. It doesn't do that. Grace is drenched in freedom. Grace is the thing that goes to the prison door, rips that door off its hinges, and looks you full in the face and says, you can stand up, walk, run. Freedom is on the other side of this. So if there's any other version, that's a false, artificial, faux, junk version. And that's how we've gotten into trouble over and over, right? We take these beautiful words and then we decide, well, I think I'm going to add a few more rules. It's just that's what Martin Luther said. The default of the human heart is religion, meaning we like systems. We like rules. We like to decide this is okay, this isn't. Here's where this box goes. I've got that in my heart for sure. Satin cape, people, I'm into it. But it doesn't free anybody. And Jesus came for freedom, for full freedom. Now, does he say, you're so free, and now I want you just to continue doing things that destroy you or hurt you or hurt others because you're free? No worries, we're moving on. I think when we read the Gospels, we have to reckon with, no, he doesn't. His love is so ridiculous, he won't let me stay in my muck and in my mire. His entire mojo is to pull me up out of that. But the difference is when you catch a glimpse of what his grace is and what his grace does, you want to walk there, right? This isn't a begrudging, okay, I guess I'll do what you ask. It's absolutely, how can I get closer to you and how can I have more of what you have? That's very, very different. And it's absolutely drenched in life.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I know that was like, here, answer this on behalf of all believers everywhere for all of time.
Oh, man.
But
I mean, there's a lot to say about that. And I think in this moment, I'm sure you've noticed this too, Stephanie, in publishing, there are just a lot of spaces where people are grappling with what to do. And we've taken it all apart and we looked inside, and some of what we have seen is just really alarming. And I guess my heartbeat would say, full in the face we look at it all. We drag it all out into the light. And then what do we build instead, right? I think there are two parts of that. And I think both parts are so important.
Yeah. I love this. I love, one of the things that I appreciate the most that I really, I said I've always wanted Girls Night to be a safe place for everybody. And one of the things that I've always talked about is that when I'm talking about something that has I never want to use language that excludes people. So when I first started going to church, when I became a Christian, there were a whole there was a dictionary I didn't know anything about.
What are these people saying?
I don't know. I didn't wear the shirts. I don't know the bands. I
no
didn't
cape? Did you have a cape though?
No, I had no cape. There are things like that I'm like, how did I miss that? That's amazing. I really appreciate when people talk about God with real words and real ways. And I appreciate that you do that.
Yeah. Let's all just decide to do that, right? I just don't know that there's anything very engaging or winsome about everybody saying the same things all the time. And that's part of what we do as writers, right? We try to hold things up into the light and turn them. The prism shifts as you turn a quarter turn every couple seconds. I hope that there's a compliment that you would say that, because that's top priority for me, because when we stop using fresh language, we don't mean to, but we dishonor the depth of what we're saying. So really working hard to find new and vibrant ways of talking about big things, I think is a way that we honor the truth of it.
Yeah, I love that. My husband is better with words than I am, which is funny because I'm a writer and he is a writer. He should write more, but it takes him a long time because he wants every word to be just right. And I'm a little less finicky about that. But one of the things that he would always get so frustrated with me when we first started dating, because I would talk about a song and I'd be like, oh, that's my favorite song. Or this is the best sandwich I've ever had. And he'd be like, you said that yesterday. And I'm like, why does it bother you so much when I use these superlatives so loosely? And he said, because words have meaning. Say what you mean. Say when you're cheapening the actual best one when you say they're all the best. And it was funny. It's just we're just wired differently. And he finally goes, I didn't realize that you actually do feel like this is the best one. You are telling the truth. I'm like,
that's what I would say today. This is the best sandwich I've ever had. Tomorrow you can talk to me.
Exactly.
You're both right.
But yes, we're both right. But I love that using new words, using fresh words, and thinking really hard about the words that you use honors your experience and honors the listeners and honors God, doing him justice a little bit better that way. Kim, I love you. I think you are amazing. I'm so glad to get to talk to you. Do you have any just last, for the women listening, like, hey, don't forget this. Or when I was, I don't know, in my, mid-20s, mid-30s is kind of where most of my people are. Of course, we're all over the board, but like, I wish someone had told me this. Just anything any last things I didn't ask.
Yeah. You know what? I could break totally into ugly cry just thinking about you all, because I wish I could hug every single one of you with your permission. I'm old enough to know that some people aren't huggers. I am. I wish I could. I wish I could just embrace you and talk to you each one-on-one and remind you that you, oh golly, you are the pinnacle of what God did, right? Your spot in creation is just top notch. And you're living in a super exciting time, as Stephanie has said, the everything era, where you're absolutely inundated with huge life decisions. And my guess is that sometimes you might not feel up to it. They might feel a little weighty to you. And I would just say, I wish I would have heard this more myself, or agreed with it, right? I probably heard it and wasn't ready for it. I wish I had heard to my depths the truth that there is more than enough grace to cushion every single fall, every single day. The decisions you're making, the way you're navigating today and this week and this next season, and all the things that are so big and maybe sometimes looming, or the way you're navigating a season of waiting and feeling like, gosh, I thought I'd be in a different spot right now. All of those places, there is an abundance of care. And again, that stubborn, unrelenting love and grace. It's there. And you don't get to earn it. There's nothing you're doing or not doing that will take that away from you. And so while you're working hard, keeping your nose down, doing what you think is what you need to do right now in this season, whether that's furthering your career, making decisions on relationships, having babies, wanting so badly to have babies and not seeing those 2 lines on the test. I have been in all of those spaces. And I want you to know you have everything you need, not because of you, not because you're hustling it, but because the God of grace thinks that you are extraordinary. And he's not going to take you to this point and then moonwalk out of the room. That's just not who he is. He doesn't have that in him. So you're not alone in this. I think this podcast and spaces like this are just sweet gifts to remember, for all of us to remember, oh yeah, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. But even when your headphones are off, I would hope that you would remember this old lady looking at you and saying, you have it. You have this grace. It is a free, unending gift to the last day of your life. And so being able to just let your shoulders relax in that and hold fast to it, oh man, that changes the light in the room.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This is just delightful. I'm so excited to know you now that we're really good friends.
I know.